actually. I'm gonna be meeting him in August because I'm doing this John Petrucci camp thing, so that's gonna be cool. Get some tips and tricks.
What's that?
What, sorry?
What's that? The John Petrucci camp?
Oh right, yeah. He's running this thing and it's called Guitar Universe, and it's like he's sort of asked a bunch of us. I mean, why he's asked me, I don't know, but there's me.
Some tips and tricks,
Yeah. Well, he's already using these picks. I've kind of fucked him up now because he's got his own Dunlop range, and I gave him these, and now he's using these. I got an email from Dunlop yesterday. They're not happy. But yeah, hopefully they'll start. I mean, I haven't got any more of these, so unfortunately, the Epsom guys, you've missed out on the old picks of Destiny. But yeah, to be honest, it was. I don't know. It's been a long time coming finding a pick that actually works because. At literally every clinic or every gig or whatever, I kind of bust out my box of 5,000 different Dunlop picks, and I'd be going through them. I mean, you've seen me at NAMM, haven't you, where they've been on the PA speaker, and I've just been going through them every song, going, fucking hell, this pick's rubbish.
Numerous conversations on the phone.
Yeah.
One thing that comes up in every single conversation is, I can't find a pick. Still haven't found a pick.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. I mean, the quest for a stupid bit of plastic. I mean, actually, it's probably. I mean, whether you guys sort of realise this or not, but this is probably one of the most important things that you'll need to find for yourself as a guitarist or bass player. Players, sorry. I can't believe you're still here. No, sorry, I'm only joking. Yeah, so I don't know what it is about this pick. I mean, I used to use them years ago with the polycarbonate versions when I was playing with Sacred, and it was kind of the longest lasting pick for me. But for some reason, I guess I started doing some different stuff and it didn't really work for me, so I sort of threw it away. And then I recently went back to them because I always thought this shape is the one shape that always worked for me, but I didn't like the material. So I always knew, right, that the pick that I would like would be the one pick that's collecting dust in the corner of some warehouse where it was like a limited run and nobody's interested in these picks. And I knew that that would be the pick for me, you know what I mean? So Dunlop had some slightly different ones, same shape, but they're 3mm picks and they're like the Prime Tone range. And they had some made up in Ultex and they were going to release them, but they never did. So I was having a conversation with Chris from Dunlop and he was saying, oh, look, I've got these picks, I don't know whether you'll like them, but they're kind of like what you're talking to me about anyway. So I was like, yeah, send them over. So I did, I tried them and I really liked them. They were just a little bit too thick for me. So I was sort of saying, look, I really like the material in this shape, can you make the Jazz Tone 208s in Ultex? So they did, and I think it was kind of like the last time he was going to take a pick request from me, because I've had about 3 different runs of AJ picks and I don't use any of them. So he's like, look, this is literally the last time we're going to do anything for you, because after that you can forget it. So I was like, yeah, cool, all right then, it better work. And it did, and now I've got like, every time I let someone, have a pick or whatever, they're like, oh no, I'm not going to be playing that. Even like Rick, when he came round, he actually did the solo for Victory with this, with one of the. In fact, I've got the very pick in my pocket. I forgot actually. Special moment here. This is the actual pick that Rick Graham used for that song. I need to think of a way to sort of raffle it off. Maybe someone in this room can own this very pick. Yeah, this will come. If you buy one of those guitars, you can have this pick. If not, I shall keep it. I don't know, we'll have to think up a way of sorting that out later. I don't know, that's a bit steep, isn't it? $1,000 for a bit of plastic. Free guitar? You just said free guitar. Wow. Oh, right, yeah. Okay, I'll see where you went with that. Fair enough. Yeah, cool, sorry. So guitar players. Yeah, they're a couple. I mean, Jeff Loomis has always been someone that's kind of blown my mind, like with how good he is with sweeping and all that. I don't know. I quite like Jason Hook from Five Finger Death Punch. Yeah. I don't know, like if anyone's sort of thinking, oh, really? Because I know that band is like Marmite to some people, innit? You either love it or hate it, but you can definitely tell there's like a sort of George Lynch old school 80s vibe in the way he plays. Like some of the solos he's done for like some of them songs are great. So I'm kind of a fan of that. I don't know anything good melodic that's played well, really.
What about from a production point of view then? Is there anything, what's the last album you listened to you're like, that's killer?
I quite like the While She Sleeps. Latest album. Mind you, I'm kind of biased because we're doing the drums in the same place, so I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be good. But no, like the guys that engineered, like over at Treehouse in Chesterfield. I mean, Jim Pinder, who we're doing drums with at the moment, he's doing an amazing job. The videos I've been getting sent from Chris are like ridiculous. I was kind of there the first day, and then obviously I had to come and do the clinic tour and stuff. But yeah, it's they know how to get good sounds and stuff like that, and so yeah, that album I really liked. I quite like the fact that it's a mod metal album with like a good amount of low end, because you find like, you know, some metal albums, because they're so metal, they just don't have any kind of weight to them. Anything with like big drums that's got quite a lot of low end, that's really tight and powerful, I kind of like that really. I guess that's probably why I like things like Nickelback and stuff, because obviously that's like Chris Lord-Alge or, you know, Randy Staub or whatever. Those guys are fucking incredible producers, and most of it's country anyway. Like the best production in the world for bands is country production. So, you know, when you kind of put that into a heavier setting with a band, it really works like insanely well. So yeah, just stuff like that really. Daughtry is one of my favourite singers, so all of that kind of stuff, I like that as well. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe some of you were expecting me to say Megadeth or Pantera or something, but that stuff's cool as well, you know. Actually, the latest Hell Yeah album's pretty good. I like that. Anyone heard that?
Yeah.
Undeniable. Yeah, you should check it out. Alright, cool. Moving on. Anyone got any other sort of questions?
Do you like listening to other people playing your stuff on YouTube? Do you do that?
Sometimes. I don't know. It's kind of it's a weird feeling, because honestly, like, I mean, I don't really think about what's going to happen to the music after it goes out there, and then you kind of get people that tag you in videos and stuff, and then you kind of watch it and you think, wow, you know, someone's actually spent all that time trying to learn something that I've just written and put out there, you know what I mean? So it's kind of mad from that point of view. I mean, yeah, it's normally when people ask me for my opinion, because I'm quite honest, so I sort of don't really give it, because I don't want to upset anybody, you know, because quite a lot of the time I can find fault with everything, you know what I mean, even my own playing. So I guess that's kind of why I'm so obsessed with my own playing and stuff, is because it's never good enough, you know what I mean. So that's kind of the attitude I have towards pretty much everything I do. So yeah, it does get a little bit awkward, like when they've seen you've read their message and you're, I don't know what to say. I want to say it's good, but there's a couple of things that you need to work on. But I don't know, maybe I should just be honest and say, yeah, it's good, but, you know, and then reel off a load of stuff. But, you know, there are some really good covers out there as well. And then when they're really good, I do sort of say, oh, you know, because it's positive anyway, you know what I mean? So I can sort of say, yeah, it's great, you know, keep it up, sort of thing. So I'll try and be as diplomatic as I can be, like, with stuff, you know what I mean? But I realise that sort of doesn't help people either, you know, because obviously if you've got people telling you that you're great all the time, you're not really going to progress. So it's kind of swings and roundabouts. I remember I've had quite a few serious sort of lessons growing up and playing in bands and playing live and stuff like that, you know, and not all of it positive. So obviously you get bummed out when somebody sort of doesn't think that you're very good, or they think you need to work on something or whatever. But actually, if you kind of think about it, they're doing you a favour, because it's like, well, actually, yeah, okay, I can hear that now, and now I can fix it, and then ultimately become a better guitar player or whatever it is because of it. So yeah, long-winded answer. Sorry for that, but oh, sorry.
I had another.
Yep. In there.
I'm pretty new to guitar, so I'm here for inspiration.
Okay.
And so at the moment my fingers are slow, not very strong, not very dexterous. Is there any hope in hell I can ever be good starting at a late age?
What kind of stuff are you into?
I want to learn from the basics, so pretty much all kinds of genres,
Right.
rock and various other
Okay. It's normally not a good idea to start with loads of different things all in one go. It's normally best to just kind of decide what it is you like the most, and then focus on that. For a good, I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't take influence from other things, but it normally is easier to do that when you've got a little bit of kind of grounding yourself to sort of be able to perform this stuff. I mean, I'm sort of a big believer in working on things that if you discover something that you think, oh, actually it felt quite easy to do, then that's kind of a good direction to go, because there'll be other things that will feel just like that, and then you start to work on those things and develop that. It does get to a point where most guitar players that I know, that they do get to a point where they're struggling. It's normally because they've tried to master everything, like a jack of all trades and sort of master of none kind of thing, because they feel that, I don't know, somehow the guitar community will think less of them if they don't know how to sweep pick but they can alternate pick. Then if they're not a complete guitar player, then they won't get the respect they deserve, kind of thing. So I don't know, like if there's a sort of particular technique or a sound or something that you like, I would definitely say that's going to be the strongest pull. And also, by doing that, you stick with something that you're really into. You're not going to be learning country licks or whatever if you're not particularly into that, or jazz or whatever, but you feel like you need to learn it anyway. It's always going to feel like a pain in the arse, I don't really want to play that, I want to play this, So if you kind of follow your passion, it normally takes you in a much stronger direction for like learning anything. In terms of like the dexterous kind of thing and stuff like that, I mean, most things on the guitar, people like to sort of put like beginner, intermediate and advanced labels on everything, but I kind of always say, like, advanced stuff in people's minds is just slow stuff for a beginner played quickly. It's kind of no different. Like if you took a sort of 4-note kind of rock lick, I suppose, or even if you played it even slower, sort of, as long as you can kind of play it slow and it sounds pretty cool. But I mean, the difference between someone who's just picked that up and someone who's been playing for years kind of thing, I mean, it really just goes from so there isn't really a beginner, intermediate and advanced for anything. Even if it's like a sort of arpeggio, you can kind of go, someone could do that at a slow tempo if they concentrate every morsel of their brain on it. Or if you kind of want to, fast forward 10 years or something, you can kind of just use that same thing and just play. So that would be the difference between being new to it and being comfortable with it. And I think anything on the guitar, or anything in life, like if you get in the car and you don't think about it, you put your seatbelt on, you put it into first gear and you drive, you don't think about it. But at some point there would have been a time where that wasn't so familiar. So it really is just repetition and practice and all that kind of stuff. And it's the same thing with a musical instrument. The more you do it, the more you feel confident in the direction that you're going in terms of, you know where the notes are, you know where to put your fingers. And then most of it just gets buried into the subconscious. So you're not thinking about the individual notes, you're not thinking about the individual pick strokes, all of that kind of stuff. It just becomes, a flow to be able to play whatever lick that it is, or whatever phrase or solo or song that it is that you're wanting to learn.
You don't think it matters that I'm starting late?
No, not at all. I think anybody can sort of like start. I mean, obviously, at the beginning of your journey playing guitar or doing anything, there's always a massive learning curve, and that takes more time, more dedication, more time just having the instrument in your hands. If I don't play guitar for 3 weeks, it takes me about 10 minutes, and it comes back, it's like riding a bike kind of thing. But obviously when you're just starting out, you don't have that yet, so obviously you have to spend more time to get to that point, and then things start to feel a bit more comfortable. But it really is just sort of, time and dedication. It doesn't really matter what age you are or whatever when you start. So hopefully there's something in that helps. No worries. All right, we met before, haven't we? Yeah.
I just wanted to throw out 2 more names to guitar players.
Okay.
Just see what you think of them at the moment. One is Per Wilson.
Yeah.
'Cause I know
Amazing.
you quite like him,
Yeah. Well, he's a good bloke as well. We've done a lot of drinking together.
The other one is Paul Wardinger.
Yeah.
And it would sort of tie in. The way I wanted to ask you is in terms of song composition and how they use. I call them crazy scales and crazy changes in between you can build a song that's got 3 or 4 chords and make it simple and
Mm.
shred on it.
Which is kind of my approach.
Kind of what you do,
Yeah.
it sounds great anyway. And then you can go a bit crazy and constructive as such. What do you feel about them, and have you tried going in that sort of direction?
Yeah, well, obviously, like Per Nilsson, Scar Symmetry was a band that I listened to a lot when I discovered like who they were and stuff. And obviously, I kind of never really heard anybody play guitar quite like that, because it sort of sounds like a keyboard player, the way he sort of plays and how fluid he is on the instrument. And so yeah, and I liked kind of the heavy setting. So there are a few songs that I've done that were probably demos and stuff, or that never really got onto like a CD, where I kind of dipped my toe into that. I think the closest thing to that was probably that EP that I did, Psychic Transfusion, 2013, which I did with another Canadian guy who's kind of more into that electronic thing and all the rest of it. I think for me though, me personally, for my own music, I kind of want to follow what I feel I'm strongest at, I've kind of spent a long time looking at other guitar players, looking at other styles of music and trying to make up my mind whether I want to go down this route or that route or the other. But I kind of feel like if I'm doing that, I'm always sort of trailing what somebody else is doing, So if my record sounded like Scar Symmetry, then it would be more that was like a blatant sort of influence, if you know what I mean. Whereas I know people think that Paul Waldingham and Per Nilsson are very similar, but actually if you kind of listen to the way they play, it's very different. So I don't actually think that, Paul, I've even spoke to him about this, and he didn't really know anything about Scar Symmetry or Per Nilsson, he does now, because obviously people keep saying, oh man, you sound like this guy, you influenced by him, and it turns out he's actually not, it's just something that he's discovered on his own, because I think he's into like futuristic films and that kind of electronica sort of thing, and it's spilt over into his playing. So I think a lot of that kind of arpeggiated digital sound has worked his way into his guitar playing, which kind of makes it fairly unique. So yeah, but I have kind of massive respect for both those guys, because they are just ridiculous. There's things that they're doing that I would struggle with, quite a lot. But I guess Per's always saying to me that he likes my style because it's the same for him. There's things that I do that he would never have thought of, and I suppose it's just quite nice that we can appreciate each other's playing and be different. So yeah, I've kind of dipped my toe into that sort of thing, but I don't know. Like I was saying earlier with this record, I just feel like I didn't really kind of have a preconceived idea that I wanted it to sound like anything really. They were just songs that came out, and then because I don't really listen to a lot of guitar players anymore, in terms of like the instrumental shred thing or whatever. Like I was saying, I quite like music more for the kind of songs and production sort of side of it. So that kind of leads me down a different path musically anyway, to the kind of stuff that I like, and I suppose that has a direct influence in how I write my instrumental stuff. So our frames of reference are different for what we like to write and like to hear ourselves, I guess.
To tie in that with the practice, because people were asking, how do you practice to get to where you are now?
Mm.
What do you practice at the moment? What kind of things are you practicing at the moment? Are you just tidying things up, or are there literally new things that you're just trying out?
Yeah, there's always kind of new. A sort of newish concept that I've come across is like my kind of looking at like why my sweeping sucks, and trying to figure out if there's anything I can salvage out of that, which kind of remotely resembles that technique. One thing which I've kind of discovered with me personally is that I'm pretty good at sweeping this way, kind of towards the top of the low E string, but going that way it's a little bit more difficult. So playing this kind of it's easier for me to basically kind of switch it up. So the way I kind of approach that kind of arpeggio playing is to sort of merge two techniques together in order to get a similar kind of vibe. But I quite like the tonal change between just playing a minor arpeggio and then a sort of minor 7, I guess. Which I quite like to do sort of tonally. So yeah, there is that. spend quite a lot of my time trying to manipulate my playing to fit into a way in which I can play similar stuff to what I've heard and what I've been inspired by. But if I've had difficulty playing it exactly the way another guitar player has, I don't really get too hung up by it. I just change a few things and make it so it seems more comfortable to me. Because obviously, you know, when you get out and you've got to play this stuff live and whatnot, you have to kind of be able to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be playing at 100% of my ability, like for anything really, because one, it's not very enjoyable to kind of think, oh God, I've got that section coming up, why did I write that sort of thing, you know what I mean? And two, you know, if you're kind of not enjoying it, then I guess it's difficult for people to enjoy it as well at the same sort of time. But yeah, going to the sort of sweeping thing, I kind of discovered this sort of neat little kind of cycling lick that sort of, what is this? So it's a way of being able to sort of like pick through arpeggios up and down that I've kind of found a way of being able to. Been able to sort of move through arpeggios comfortably without kind of worrying about sweeping both ways. So it sort of revolves around that technique, and it's quite a good catalyst to add things on the top of that. You know, so you can kind of move through and use the same technique, but just through different sort of versions of the same thing, moving up and down the guitar. So I've found that that's something that I've been working on quite a bit lately, to sort of work on fluidity, playing arpeggios and stuff like that. So like in that song that I just played, about, I don't know, however long that was, it was like fusing sort of Japanese pentatonic together, but using that technique I sort of got a couple of those positions and put them together, so it came out with this. Yeah, so again it's the same technique with that pick, hammer on, pick, and then 3 upstrokes. And then when you extend the note out, you just put a couple more alternate picks in it, and then go back to the original sort of technique. So that's sort of stuff that I haven't really done before in previous songs or albums and stuff like that. So normally when I find a new technique like that, I try and see how many different ways I can fit it into stuff that I already have sort of done before, but see if I can get a different sound out of it. But I can also do it so trying to sweep through like pentatonics. You know, kind of thing. So it's the same sort of technique again, just used in another application, but essentially not really having to come up with a new way to do it, if you know what I mean. So
That's definitely that, you know, I haven't seen that sort of technique before. Because usually when you think about the sweep picking, it's always in both directions.
well, yeah, that's kind of the thing. I mean, like with sweep picking, it's like one of those things where it's very difficult to kind of sequence unless you're insanely good at it. Like, you know, Jason Becker or Jeff Loomis, they're really good at being able to do that. But you'll find a lot of those guys as well, as long as sweep picking, they'll kind of put in some string skipping licks as well and play stuff a little bit more linear. You know, like if you were going to play... oh, sorry. You know, kind of doing that kind of thing, it's a different sound than having to sweep that, you know what I mean? So it's just different sounds, coming up with different things or whatever. It's trying to find stuff that even as kind of, you know, observing that as technical as it is, I suppose, it's trying to find stuff that still feels comfortable even though it sounds mad. So that's kind of what I like. And my favourite licks are the ones, you know, especially talking about technique, is like if they're fairly easy to play but sound really hard. That's kind of it's kind of it, really.
It's like the first time you listen to Killswitch, sort of thing, is it?
Yeah. Well, actually, that the Killswitch thing was kind of how because I do a lot of scales and stuff like that that start with an upstroke as well as a downstroke as well, and it came from doing that Killswitch Engage DVD for Lick Library. I was kind of doing Fixation on the Darkness, right, and there's a lick in it that goes so I mean I'm totally in the wrong tuning, but that took me about 4 hours to fucking be able to play that. And to be honest with you, it was one of those things where I didn't think I was ever going to get it, because they do it all on downpick, so it's like I just can't get any power out of it whatsoever, because I just feel like the string underneath my pick is always constantly getting in the way. And after about 4 hours, and the kind of the guys filming it just left. Oh God, I can't listen to this anymore. I was kind of like, right, I need to get this done, because obviously I only go down for like days filming and then go home again. So I tried all these other ways of doing it, and plus the fact I was practicing before I went as well, and I still couldn't get my head around it. And then I just sort of thought, well, I wonder if I sort of play it with an upstroke. I mean, I've tried everything else. So it was, instead of starting with a down, see, because if what happens is like when you go for the last downstroke, you've got to swing past the low E string and then somehow hit the A string. How people do that, I don't know. But if I use like the upstroke, I can keep the pick straighter, and I don't get any other strings feel like they're going to get in the way. So I end up with, and it just feels really comfortable for some reason to sort of like do that. You know, so being able to sort of pick through different things. There's another mini discovery that actually went on to be quite a big discovery, because things like pentatonic licks and stuff. I could never do that before, because I was trying to do everything with a downstroke, or even this kind of thing. Again, I'm kind of coming across the same problem, because that B string's getting in the way of going back to the high E, and then the G's getting in the way of the B, and you know, so I'd always play licks like that. Just pick the first two and then let the sort of left hand do the rest of the work. But with the upstroke, you know, it just made things way better for me in terms of being able to pick more stuff, especially in some of the players that I've kind of grown up with and listened to and stuff like that, and always wanted to play that kind of thing. So yeah, a little mini discovery there. So I've kind of worked out that like with my picking, if I start on like an odd number of notes, like then I'll start with a downstroke. If I start on an even number, then it'll be an upstroke. So if I have like 3 notes per string and then play 6 notes per string on all the other strings, it'll be like this. So it's all starting on a downstroke, which you would expect most people would kind of do. But if I was going to start on 6 notes, then I would play it on an upstroke, so that means it's like an even number, so I'd have to play with an up. So again, if I did that with a downstroke, I have that same problem where I'm trying to swing past the string lower to hit the one underneath. So yeah, there's that. But also, if I want to play like a scale straight up and straight down, rather than use legato, which is kind of one of my weakest techniques, and then taking alternate picking, trying to pick it all is one of my strongest techniques, but even then it's a bit difficult. So trying to pick it all. Sorry. Fucking hell, I'm dying in front of you. Just like trying to pick all of that, because you're starting on a down, then moving to an upstroke the next string, downstroke the next string, upstroke, and then it's constantly changing all the time. So things like that for me are like the hindrances in terms of like trying to build up speed and fluidity on the guitar. So I kind of discovered that it starts on an odd number of notes. So I'm going to sort of like do the sort of downstroke thing, but I decided that I didn't want to worry about the pick stroke moving to the next string. So if you kind of pick the first 2 notes and then do a hammer on, you're then already ready for the next string when it comes along. So you have something like that. So you can kind of pick, hammer on. And then you kind of do it the same coming down as well. So you've got pick, and then a pull off. So then you're taking the most difficult thing out of the equation, is doing one pick stroke from one string, moving to another, because that is the hardest thing with alternate picking anyway. So you kind of, once you eliminate that, you just try and get in the flow of it. So hopefully it creates more of a fluid up and down motion. You know, so you can kind of go straight up, straight down, any kind of scale. Makes it easier than kind of having to do both. There's nothing wrong with doing, if you can pick all of that or legato all of it, then great, but that's these little discoveries that I've made have kind of made all the difference with how I can kind of get from one thing to another without kind of stressing too much about how difficult it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd like to try it because, sorry, I don't know if this is what...
I think this is interesting, is it?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
okay.
I think it's something I have to try because I always felt that I'm a lot quicker coming down the scale than going up.
Mm.
It's probably what he's saying in terms of that first down pick. Probably.
Yeah, I mean, if you're strong with one technique going one way, but you're kind of weak going the other way, then it does cause a sort of weird calibration issue. But yeah, that's kind of why I come up with these little patterns and stuff. So if I know it's pretty strong both ways, then I know I'm kind of onto a winner, like with it. So yeah, you know, a lot of my kind of picking patterns and stuff like that I do with an upstroke because I feel it's easier for like string skipping as well, kind of thing. Like the first song I played, there's a lick in it that goes. You know, if I tried to do all of that with a downstroke, I'd be in a world of hurt. So I mean, if I tried. It just seems like there's like a massive jump in there, but when you do it with an upstroke, you know, it's far more freer to sort of go through stuff, preferably without making a mistake. But when you're improvising, that's going to happen. But yeah, so that's kind of a major thing for me in terms of like picking and just getting the clarity and stuff like that. Quite a few people sort of ask me actually, like, how do you get things clean? But I mean, I don't even plug in half the time. So I mean, that kind of exercise I'll just sit and do at home with no amp.